Hi, my name is Marcus, and this is a companion podcast for the CG Jung-helpdesk meetup group. I host live events on Zoom every 2 weeks about the concepts and ideas of the Swiss psychologist Carl Gustav Jung. Every event I give a presentation about the Jungian concept, so have fun with this event's topic.
All right, recording in progress. And I want to welcome you to this week's special event, which is a movie analysis, which I haven't done in a long time. And it's about the movie American Psycho. I would say a cult classic, pretty famous movie by now, even though when it came out, almost no one wanted to see it. Based on a book, which also almost no one wanted to read, which was banned in Germany when it came out and stayed for a long time, I think 8 or 9 years, until it got released. But there was really a time in the German media landscape where a lot of things were banned. Movies, songs, also video games, and of course books. So I will look at the movie through a Jungian lens, but this does not mean this is a Jungian movie in the sense of somebody trying to pack in as many Jungian concepts as possible, but rather it is a popular movie, it's a story, and it also resonates with people. And this is already a sign that it likely is saying something about the human condition. So for Jung, you had this layer deep in the psyche of each human being, past and present, which is the collective unconscious, where culture happens, creative stuff happens, but where we find also very deep meaning. So when you have something that speaks to a lot of people, very likely it's touching the collective unconscious part in our psyche and expresses something or speaks to something that we can otherwise not express. I have to say, I went way overboard with this. I've invested a lot of time for the preparation. Stefan helped me for that really a lot. So yeah, this was really a lot of effort. I'm really excited to tell you about all the things that I found. For me, it was very hard to watch again. I watched it only 2 times, one time many years ago, and as a preparation for this event. And it's hard to watch because there's so many memes about the movie, and I had to think of all of them, of the scenes, of the business card, and just expressions, facial expressions he made. It's crazy how much it is in popular culture. Like if you're on Instagram or somewhere else, yeah, you are confronted with Patrick Bateman really, really a lot. Yeah. I did not think I would talk about this movie and make a movie analysis, and this was until I had a discussion with Stefan, and because of the very, very, very last scene of the movie, which is a monologue by Bateman, which I want to recite here. There are no more barriers to cross. All I have in common with the uncontrollable and the insane is the vicious and the evil. All the mayhem I have caused, and my utter indifference toward it, I have now surpassed. My pain is constant and sharp, and I do not hope for a better world for anyone. In fact, I want my pain to be inflicted on others. I want no one to escape. But even after admitting this, there is no catharsis. My punishment continues to elude me, and I gain no deeper knowledge of myself. No new knowledge can be extracted from my telling. This confession has meant nothing. And this is so cool because like all the quotes I have are connected to this one, even by words. And the most important part is the last words she's uttering. This confession has meant nothing. And this is verbatim from the book. Normally, when you use something from a book or put it in a movie, it has to be streamlined because a book has way, way, way more content. And a movie is a shorter experience and more cinematic experience. So everything gets condensed. But there are many dialogues and monologues from the movie that they just took one by one. This is one. And now I have a quote by Jung, which is the reason why I wanted then to talk about this movie. And it's about isolation. This is the stuff that drives people crazy because they can't catch themselves anymore. They can no longer control themselves when they have that animal psychology. It means they are driven by instinct. They see a thing and leap for it. That is a condition of schizophrenia. For all those things appear also in cases of insanity. They are dynamite that can easily explode in the human mind. If you are caught unaware by these contents, then you can't explain yourself to two people. And if you can't explain yourself anymore to your fellow beings, you are in no way different from a crazy person. So this exactly describes the situation that Patrick Bateman is in the end of the movie. And what I will talk about in this event is, how did he get there? Like, if we would look at it through a Jungian lens, through a Jungian understanding of psychology, how did he end up in the situation that he can talk to no one, feels completely isolated, and had all these experiences that might be or not be true? And for that, it's pretty important to understand Bateman's character arc. So in every story, every movie, the character has an arc, which means he's changing from beginning of the movie to end of the movie. There are several transformations happening that change the fundamentals of the character, that change their life. And the movie, the story, is like the most important thing that happened in their life. This is why the audience is seeing this part. And a little bit like in alchemy, where lead is turned into gold through transformation, through the alchemical process. Normally in stories, we see that like a normal everyday man, like Harry Potter or Neo or Luke Skywalker, become a hero through the trials and tribulations they have, through their struggles. But Bateman does not have that. He does not have catharsis. And catharsis comes from Greek cinema, meaning emotional release. So for the Greek, already theater and watching other people struggle through difficulties and overcoming them had a emotion releasing effect on the audience. This is why people went to the theater. This was why theater was written. So it is a psychological experience, which is very much missing in this story, in this movie. And the arc and the central question for Patrick Bateman is really, what makes Patrick Bateman Patrick Bateman? Because he has this monologue where he's describing his morning routine, and he describes all the things he does, but they're all superficial. And he says, you might feel the warmth of my flesh and see my eyes, but there's nothing there. This is just Patrick Bateman is an abstraction, an idea. There's nothing real about him. There's nothing that is human. This is just an act, a role that he plays. And he's saying that explicitly to his fiancée, that he wants to fit in. And this is why he's doing things. So he's there to create an image about himself, and he's willing to bend everything, like himself, his body, his personality, the things he's saying, and also people around him, just to create this image and idea about Patrick Bateman that people are, inspired by, afraid of, and attracted to. And this is super interesting to see and funny, because he gets challenged constantly throughout the movie. Like, the things that people say always push into his inferiority. So he goes through life, he wants to achieve a thing. And what we see in the movie is every time when he gets challenged by someone, his reaction is automatically one of aggression and murder. Like, someone has a better business card, so he goes out to kill that person. He gets denied at the club that he can't use a coupon and immediately says, like, I want to play in your blood. And so everything that agitates him, he has this completely overblown reaction. And this continues through the movie. This is most of the movie. So the movie is just this repetition of he gets challenged and has an outburst, and this repeats and escalates throughout the movie. But there's something that's changing. And this you have in a story, like you have a shift where the direction of the movie is going through. And this is the midpoint of the movie very often. And this is when he wants to kill Lewis in the bathroom, like he wants to strangle him. And Lewis thinks like Patrick tries to approach him and kisses him on his hands. And this freaks Patrick completely out. He's completely disturbed, and so much that he washes his hands with his gloves still on and has to return some videotapes, as he says. And this changes something in his psychology. Suddenly he gets more and more agitated. He becomes way more aggressive, but also becomes more unsure of himself and stumbles upon himself and can't speak clearly. And his action become more brutal. He's killing more brutally. He's killing more people, but at the same time, he becomes more conscious of his actions. Up to the point where he has this rampage through the city, and he escapes to his office to call his lawyer to basically confess all the horrible things he has done. And after that, he really makes an effort to connect to people. He really tries to connect to people. He talks with his fiancée and says that he's killing people and he has murderous urges, and she does not listen to him. And he's saying that she's not so important to him, and she cries. And then he has to again leave and return some videotapes. And this culminates in the situation where he confronts his lawyer and tells him all these things. And the lawyer says, "Oh, this is funny. That's so funny what you told me on the phone, and I could not believe it," and all these different things. And he really tries to make an effort to connect to another human being on a human level, even touching him. And the guy does not believe him at all and says like, "Yeah, what you say is not true. And also stop saying this because it's not funny anymore." And he does not even believe him that he's Patrick Bateman. And this is like this important thing that he says, like, "I am not David, I'm Patrick Bateman." So he states who he is, and he's not believed. Like, his actions are not believed, his person is not believed, his identity is not believed. Like, the things that he actually wanted in the beginning, to have this completely malleable thing of identity that he plays around by pretending to be different people. He pretends to be Marcus, he pretends to be Paul Allen. In the end, he says like, "No, but deep inside, like, I'm Patrick Bateman. This is who I am." And he's not believed. And this is the point where he completely breaks, because he realizes that he cannot make a single human connection with anyone. That he has these weird experiences that don't make sense, that likely happened in his head a lot, which the movie is vague about and the book is even more vague about. But this is the point where he can't connect and where he's isolated. And this is where he goes mad. And this is where the Jung's idea about isolation comes from. Jung was a therapist, so he treated a lot of people who had visions, hallucinations, fantasies that were, let's say, abnormal. He treated psychotic people, schizophrenic people, and he said those people are overwhelmed by the contents of the unconscious. So from the dark parts of the psyche, sometimes images, voices, situations come up that overwhelm the person, that might even seem completely real, the same way as dreams seem real to us. And he said their problem is that they feel completely removed from humanity. They don't feel that they belong to the human race anymore. And there he said that's this important function of a therapist, to listen to the people, sit down with the people non-judgmentally and just listen to them, so that they can unburden themselves, that they can confess. This is something that he said that got really lost even in religion. Like in the Catholic Church, you have this idea of confession and getting absolution. But in the Protestant Church, this is already not present anymore. And like today, there's not real confession anymore, except for sometimes in late night radio, people call just to tell about their weird lives and experiences. And for Jung, this is really a form of building rapport and rejoining humanity again. He had some patients with very strange experiences, and he would always listen to it. He would always take it serious. And by the way they would tell it, he would know whether he could actually help them. For example, they had a young woman coming to him. It just said, "Dr. Jung, it might sound crazy, but I'm 100% convinced that there's a snake living in my stomach and it's telling me things." They said, "Oh, this is a young woman I can help," because she realizes that this is abnormal. There's still a distance to that. She's not completely entrenched in that. So he had therapy with her, talked with her, helped her. This is more difficult when people cannot separate and believe like everything that's coming up from the unconscious. And this is when they then slowly are removed from humanity. Similar as Patrick Bateman, who just failed to connect and have anything real and human in his environment, and is then alone and gets into his psychosis. So it's American Psycho, very psychological. And the image he tries to create of himself. Jung describes this as a concept of the persona being the mask that we have in public and interaction with other people. So this is something that can be actively influenced. And I have a quote for that. You put on a certain persona, expressed, say, in your clothes or in the expression of your face or the words that you use. You affect a particular kind of language even. You take on certain mannerisms for a certain purpose. You are conscious that all of this is not yourself, but you use it as a sort of means. And this is Patrick Bateman. Like everything about him is sculpted, modulated, modified, changed to radiate a certain image of status, power, success, attractiveness. And he talks about this and the clothes he wears. But this is all superficial. This is all between human beings. This is a mask that we are having. And where persona is coming from is super interesting. It also comes from Greek theater. Those were the masks that the actors were wearing. And the reason why it's called persona is it comes from personare, which means to speak through. In these masks, there was a little mouthpiece that would amplify the voice because back then, no microphones, no loudspeakers. So they had to work with acoustics of the theater and also with this little mouthpiece to amplify the voice. And this mouthpiece became associated with the mask that the actors were wearing. This then got associated with this abstract idea of having an identity in interpersonal relationships. So what we are doing today on social media, for example, maybe dating apps or Facebook or practically everywhere, LinkedIn, we're trying to create a persona. We're trying to transport certain things about our personality and other things we do not. So he engages in a performance, which is then interesting that he uses mirrors so much because he tries to see himself as other people might see him. But also that's the only way how he can perceive himself. He doesn't see any value in himself, but rather in the value how other people perceive him. Which is funny because when you look at his colleagues and the people around him, they all wearing the same clothes. They have the same hairstyle. They have the same glasses. They even have the same job. Like everybody is vice president. All the business cards look the same. They work in the same company. Like there is no individuality. There's only collectivism. But he's striving for that collectivism. He's striving to become interchangeable and then plays with these different identities, assuming of other people. So this is a super typical thing in the movie and theme of mistaken identity. He does it willfully, but also it happens constantly. Like, oh, is that Ivana Trump? Oh, is this Donald Trump? Oh, is this Paul Allen? It is all the identities are not completely fixed, but rather played around with. And what Jung writes here about the words that and mannerisms that people have, his speech is completely unnatural in the movie as he talks. Actually, it talks a lot like the waiters do in the movie, the waiters in the restaurants, where he's constantly trying to sell or push something and does it with way too much enthusiasm. It sounds fake. This is even what the actor said that great with Christian Bale, who did a tremendous job to play this character. They said when they were on set, they did not understand his character and said like, oh, Christian Bale is a bad actor because he's behaving so weirdly. It became only clear when the movie was finished and cut and everything that this was actually the role. This was intentional. This is also how Christian Bale met with the author of the book. Full in character, full as Patrick Bateman, and it freaked the author out completely. Yeah, so he is pathologically lying, constantly performing, but at the same time, super convincing. Like people believe him. Nobody questioned it, except for the detective. And he's also not working at all. Like we never see him working. We never see him actually do anything. He's there to fake plans, to cancel plans, to go to restaurants. And this has a specific reason in his psychology. And this has to do with inferiority. And I have 2 quotes for that. Sensitiveness is a sure sign of the presence of inferiority. And also, there are people who have the illusion they are better than other men, assume that they are different, as if they had another kind of blood. This is all illusion. Therefore, no individual relation is possible with such people. So he is, obviously, when we watch him, neither smart nor competent nor anything. So there's a very strong reason why he might feel inferior and needs to lie all the time. And this sensitiveness that Jung talks about is extremely strong at him. He's easily agitated and his reactions are completely outblown. Like he's killing people, as I said, because they get a reservation in a restaurant he can't get a reservation in, Dorsia, or they have a better business card, or they have an account he does not have, or they have a better apartment or whatever. That's the reason to kill people. And this is because his psyche cannot handle this. He gets reminded of his own insufficiencies. And Jung said that's completely typical. So, for example, when somebody has an inferiority complex in regards to their intelligence, he said they will use very complicated words and they will wear glasses and they want to look smart, appear smart. So people try to pretend that they're very strong, where they're actually the weakest, in hopes that they do not get attacked there. And throughout the movie, he constantly, directly or indirectly, gets challenged. For example, when he meets the hooker for the second time, and she tells him like, "Oh yeah, their new apartment is better than the old one," and it's actually the Paul Allen's apartment that he likes more. And yeah, his assistant, when he goes on their date, when the assistant, and he asks her where she wants to go, and she said, "Oh, I want to go to Dorsia." And we know already, like, he can't get to Dorsia. He gets laughed off, and he never had a reservation there, and he will never get a reservation there. We know, like, what's making this with the character, and will cause another killing spree. And Jung gave a name to this inferiority. Jung said all the things we don't want to deal with, and the things we don't want to be aware of, this is our shadow side, the dark side of the psyche, where we hide a lot of things. This could be negative emotions, that could be trauma. So things of our life we do not want to take care of, we don't want to think about, we don't want to process, so they stay fresh. But what he says is that those things get projected onto other people. So we see the stuff in other people we don't want to see in ourselves. And this creates an emotional reaction and relationship. And this relationship is determined by hate, really hate. Jung says we hate our shadow, and the people we hate around us very likely tell us about something about ourselves where we feel insufficient, inferior, and where we have to deal with that. And the shadow can be expressed through figures. For Jung, the shadow is a figure that pops up in the psyche, especially in dreams. And that could be an animal attacking you, or a person chasing you, or someone very disagreeable in your thoughts. And in a movie, which is like played out psychology, this is then expressed by figures. So we encounter a lot of figures that, let's say, trigger the shadow of Patrick Bateman. For example, the detective, as I said. Like, the detective, William Dafoe, seems to know more than he lets Patrick into. Like, he's asking all these weird questions. He's challenging what he's saying. Like, "Oh yeah, you need to go through that restaurant. That's pretty far away. That's on the other side of the city." And he shows him like the CD of the music he murdered Paul Allen to. Like, "Oh yeah, I just bought this record." And it's like this super weird coincidence. And this is, for Jung, nothing unusual. He says our psyche challenges ourselves and showing us disagreeable thoughts, fantasies, images, dreams, visions that force us to confront the shadow, to integrate these parts, because they should not be separated. They should be within the person. They should be in consciousness, but they are not, because the person does not want to deal with them. Similar, the flamboyant Louise, which is the fiance of the girl he's sleeping with, I forgot her name, where he said, "Oh, that's like the biggest doofus in the city." and like how can that be your fiance, and like how he can get also nice business cards, and then he went to the toilet and Rod tries to kill him. And this is something triggering in Patrick again, because like, oh, that's the biggest doofus. Of course he hates him, because he's like not as manly as he is. He is rather flamboyant and seems to be as maybe incompetent, maybe they're all incompetent, as Patrick is. So this reminds Patrick of his own inferiority and causes then the reaction. And this is then also very interesting and important from a Jungian sense. Like when Louis kisses him on the hand, this is already symbolically an integration process. So in dreams and stories, in visions, this bodily contact, for example, sexual interaction, is already a form of integration. It's a form of combining. Suddenly he gets into contact with his shadow. And it is not this hateful relationship, but rather a relationship of love and affection. And this freaks him out because his psyche cannot deal with that, even though that this is what he needs. Like he needs human connection. And this is the first time in the movie that there's like an earnest human emotion, connection, words, and he cannot deal with it because it's all honest. It's all serious. It's all genuine and humane. It's like not fake and plastic and abstract, but something real. And there's another shadowy figure. And this has to do with the homeless person that he kills very much in the beginning. I think it was his first kill in the movie. And he says these things that are super interesting from a Jungian sense. He says like, I have nothing in common with you, which is not true. Like Patrick Bateman is not especially competent. Like he got his job through other means, and he could also be broke and he could also be poor. But he says like, oh no, there's no way I could be sitting in the street in the dark without money, being dependent on other people and all these different things. And this is already showing the separation from the shadow, where he says like, oh no, this is nothing to do with me. I share nothing with them. Like we're not even the same species. So he kills it because at the same time it reminds him of himself, what he internally also is, because he's not only this flashy magazine cover model, but he's a real human being with way more depth that at the same he does not want to see. And with the shadow and the dark associated is also the nighttime. So the day and night in symbolic sense are associated with consciousness, daytime. So the things that we can see, the things we can do, but then also nighttime, the dark things, like the dangerous time when predators come out. His kills happen at night. They're happening in the nighttime of his psyche, in his shadow side, where he's living out his dark urges that he's trying to hide during the daytime. So the time when he does not have control, he has control during the daytime, but does not have control during the nighttime. And this comes then out, and Jung talks about this nighttime psychology and says when you have tribal people somewhere in Africa or South America or India, they would not go out at night because he said like people are different at night. People behave different. Other aspects come out. And this makes them then very dangerous. It's the same time today. Like if you walk through a city, daytime, everything can seem nice. And if you're in certain parts at night, like it's super dangerous and you will get robbed, stabbed, killed, or even worse, fates. So Jung says, the same thing is happening in the psyche. And we go deeper. We get deeper through the psyche, like being consciousness, the uppermost level, with persona being the interpersonal thing, shadow being in the personal psychology. But now we're going really, really deep. And we go to the feminine side. We're going to the anima. Jung sees masculine and feminine forces in all human beings. But he says, like in men, the masculine force is stronger. In women, the feminine force is stronger. But everybody is a whole human being. So they also have part of the other inside of them. It's not so strong, but it's still there. It also needs to be dealt with. It also needs to be integrated. And I have some quotes for that fit to this movie. The intellect can only dissect and discriminate, and the creative element lies out of reach of the intellect in the unconscious. Also, that is one of the foolish ideas that which men have. They think that eros is sex, but not at all. Eros is relatedness. And the last one, eros, is rooted in man's body. So this feminine force, Jung calls eros, which is a Greek term, same as logos, which is the masculine force. And the logos is abstract, it's airy, it's, up in the sky, while eros and femininity is like the earth, and it's with a higher degree of complexity in regards of it's not clear cut. So what he says, logos is doing, it's discriminating things, it's separating things. So when you have Adam, for example, in the paradise created by God, like Adam gives names to the animals. So he is taking this broad term of animals and he's saying like, you are fishes, you are dogs, you are elephants, and so on. This is a form of discrimination. This is separation, categorization out of a unclear mass. And this is what he means when he writes, the intellect can only dissect and discriminate. The creative part, the actually creating part of the psyche and human psychology, he sees on the feminine side. On same as like women can get children, but men can't. So the creative ground, the earth, this is the feminine. And it's super interesting when you look at Patrick Bateman, who's completely one-sided. He's completely in his head, nothing deeper in the psyche. He's abstract. He's completely on the logo side. So what does he do? He discriminates and dissects. He discriminates people like he's stupid, he's stupid, he's stupid. And he dissects like the bodies of people. He's cutting things up. At the same time, he's creating nothing of value. He's not even working at all. This is cut off from him. And this is why he feels basically inferior, because he has to pretend that he actually does something and has achieved something while doing nothing. And there is nothing in him that can create something. He watches those movie tapes. He watches a porn movie in the movie, and he watches Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And he acts out these things verbatim. He hires two hookers, goes with them to bed, films it just like the porn, and does the scenes like the porn. He has no original thought or idea. He runs after the one girl with a chainsaw, just like Chainsaw Massacre. She's also screaming the same way. Nothing original. This is just a recycling of things he saw. And when he speaks like a waiter and talks about the music, for example, it always sounds like a review. It always sounds like something you read somewhere. He did not come up with these things. These are not the things he feels. He does not feel anything. He told us that in the beginning. But rather he recites, he recycles. And he has to do so because he can't create anything. Because the feminine part from him is completely removed. It's just not there. He's not a complete human being. He's only on one side. And Jung says, this can happen. This is normal. Like, this is how we start out with everything. But with time, the unconscious will create another. It will create a force of equal weight that tries to push against the person, against their consciousness, to get the attention, to remind them, hey, you're a complete human being. And the person will not be able to deal with it because it's all the parts they did not want to deal with. And this is what the second quote is for. Like, eros is relatedness, it's connecting, it's not separating, but it's coming together with people and interacting with them to become grounded. Not only flying through air, for example. Like, there's also this great movie with George Clooney, Up in the Air, where he is also without roots and he has to learn roots, and he does it by building a relationship with a woman. So this is a typical motif in a lot of stories of the very abstract man doing things way up high, and there's a woman pulling him down and reminding him that he also has a body and should take roots and be connected to people and to the world. And for Jung, every time something comes out of the unconscious, we likely misunderstand it and misinterpret it. And this is why he's saying, like, eros is relatedness. This is a feminine function inside man. It's being connected to other people. But men do not see that, but rather see this as sex and sexual drive. Like, this is also a form of connection, but it's very short, very intense, and it's not something long time and not as sophisticated as a relationship, a long-term relationship. So what does Pat Bateman do? He's like sleeping around constantly everywhere, and he's hiring hookers, and that's like all he does. Like, he goes on dates, has sex with people, goes to restaurants. Like, he's consuming the whole time. He's not producing anything. And we see this lack of relatedness throughout the whole movie. Like, not even the relationship to his fiancée. So the woman he will marry and spend the rest of his life with, ideally, he does not feel for her at all. It's all show. It's all pretense. It's all, again, to get something, to achieve something. And it's super interesting. He does not want to be touched. And it happens so often in the movie. Like, the homeless guy tries to touch him. Like, his shadow tries to touch him. And he says, "Oh, no, get away from me," and kills him. He wakes up at night with the two hookers in his bed, and her hand slips just on his hand. And he wakes up and says, like, "Don't touch the watch." And then he goes and tortures her. And Lewis kisses him on the hand, and this freaks him out completely. And it is then in the end where his fiancée also tries to touch him, and he takes her hand, but only for a second to hold her down, and then takes his hand away. And then in final, he really touches his lawyer. He really tries to get connection with someone. Where he touches like his chest, where the heart is, to get there a human connection. This is what he purposefully does, and that's for the very first time in the movie, showing his transformation, his journey throughout the movie. What the anima does in man as a function very often is the creation of unstable moods. So logos is more thoughts, and eros is more, and the anima is a representation of eros, is more emotions, moods, feelings. This is why he says, like, an anima-possessed man has uncontrollable moods that come out of nowhere and are incredibly dangerous, as we can see in the movie, as it can result in killing people. And he says the same is also true for women. But for them, it's like very obtrusive thoughts coming up that grip them, that they completely come opinionated and completely convinced of things that are not actually coming from them, but coming from a different part of the psyche. And of course, they're causing then problems in the external world. And there is something super interesting. When we see Patrick Bateman during his morning routine, we can see like his body, like he's showing us his body a lot. And it's completely clean shaven. There's not a single hair. Like, he doesn't have a beard. It's not on his chest. It's not under his arms. Like, he takes meticulous care. But there's one scene, only for a second, where he is in a solarium where he's tanning, basically. And we can see from the side that he still has his pubic hair, which from a Jungian sense is super interesting. Because this is the field where he has problems. This is his area of problems, like this connectiveness, like this primal urges and emotions. And this is still wild. This is natural. This is with hair. This is the things that actually then haunts him, not the hair, but rather the things that constantly comes up. And it's interesting to think about, like, okay, why is it still there when everything else is just so meticulously crafted? Why did he kept it? And yeah, Eros is rooted in man's body. He's constantly talking about blood. He's talking about bones. He's talking about meat. When he's pretty far gone already, he's doing this crossword puzzle, and all he fills out is meat and bones, meat and bones. So he's obsessed with the bodily. He's obsessed with the feminine. And he's approaching it in a completely different way, right? He's trying to approach it in a logos way, in an abstract way, in a dissecting way. but he has to have it more in an encompassing, integrating way. And I have a quote for that I want to read out, which is very much fitting when we see his calendar where he has all these images of women he cut up or fantasized of cutting up. Children who are particularly under the influence of the mother and of this archetypal figure develop a precocious sexuality in order to free themselves from the image of the mother. Because if they proceed to attach sex fantasies to the mother, that depreciates the mother. It brings her down to the level of nature. She's only woman. I have seen pictures, for instance, in which people all by themselves, before I even touched them, had represented this depreciation of the mother by mutilating the mother's image, cutting off her fingers or hands or feet, or ripping her open, or beheading her, which were all attempts to depreciate the powerful mother in order to make her human. We don't know too much about his personal background, but looking through it through a Jungian lens, it seems like that he has a mother complex. Because it's fitting very much to the things that Jung talks about when he talks about mother complex, which is like sleeping around, but also these very disturbing acts of dissection, basically. And this is then interesting why this movie is a horror movie, because you find this constantly. You find father complexes and mother complexes a lot in different movies. But the father complex, this is something you can show to children. Like almost all Marvel movies have something about a father with a dark past, a father that's not there, all these different things. Like, cute. Like there's somebody father complex. Let's show it to children that are 12. But as soon as you have a mother complex, you have a horror movie. Like a lot of horror movies show this conflicted psychology with the image of the mother. So also in this movie. And this is something that people instinctually feel. And Jung talked about how he took care of soldiers. So he was Swiss and also had to help in the Swiss army, I think every year, and lived also through some conflicts that were there, not on the front lines, but on the back. And he said, when the soldier is dying, he's not crying for the father. He's always crying for the mother. So it's something incredibly, incredibly deep. And this is then also the place where people don't want to go. And this is what we show in horror movies and say oh no, you should be a grown up or even older. And even adults say no, I don't think I want to see the movie about the mother complex. Of course, he tries to control his anima, but does it in a bad way because he tries to control the women around him. Jung says there's this relation between how we treat the anima inside of us and how we treat the women outside, because this gets projected. Like this inferior feminine side of the male gets projected on the female outside, which causes him to dictate everything about women, like what to wear, what to eat, where to go, what to behave, what not to do. Like he's telling this one hooker not to smoke in his apartment, even though that he's smoking in his apartment. He just wants to control the feminine in every way. Even through his appearance to become incredibly attractive, like how he dresses, how he behaves, the status that he has. This is all about control and basically repressing this part to not deal with it, to not interact with this. And it works. Like what we see in the movie, women initially are very much attracted to him. But as soon as they get to know him better, they feel that there's something off. Like the hookers immediately sense that there's something off. Or maybe I should say prostitutes. And his assistant also, who sees him every day, is yes, Patrick is here, and so on, and does everything for him. It's only that with time that she notices, there's something off about him. And that is when she opens the calendar and sees oh my God, a guy with a mother complex. A lot of disturbing pictures. So a central question really of the movie and of the book is how much of this is real and how much is happening in his head. How much is fantasy? Jung says, for our experience, it's not so important if something is coming from the outside as something that exists in the real world, like trees, the weather, or the apartment, or coming from the inside, which is emotions, feelings, ideas, and so on. He says, for human beings, both are real because both have an effect on the person. And if you're so removed from your psyche and your psychology, your unconscious will basically shout and scream at you to get your attention up to the point where things happen that you believe to be real. So this is the experience that he says that a lot of psychotic and schizophrenic people have, that they have suddenly visions and hallucinations that they're 100% are convinced they're as real as a tree, a car, or anything that exists in the outside world. So it would not be unusual to assume that a lot of stuff that happened to Patrick Bateman were his fantasy, stuff that he experienced, like drawing all these horrible, horrible pictures in his calendar, that what we see is his experience, but in his psyche, and not necessarily the things that happened outside. Because there's a lot of stuff happening, which is weird. For example, in the end, where he has a shootout with the cops and the car explodes, and like he could not even believe that his gun could do that. It is just running around killing people, and it's a lot like GTA. And he confesses to his lawyer, and then it's the next day, and like nobody searches for him, even when that people saw him, and there's no investigation, and all these different things. And the question is really, okay, is this really where it happened? Also, very interestingly, where does he go in his highest situation of distress? He goes into his office. He goes into his status. He goes to all the things that he pretends he is. So it's not clear whether it's happening or not, because he also goes to Paul Allen's apartment. It's completely white and completely clear. And this is something I forgot to mention. There are two very strong colors in the movie, and this is white and red. And for Jung, those are alchemical colors associated with certain stages of psychological development, just like turning lead into gold. These different stages have different colors. And white is preceded by red. And white is the abstract thing. It's very airy, like Logos. Airy, abstract, not bound to earth, clean, pure, but also sterile. And we see that, like, his apartment is white, the clothes he's wearing is white, everything is white. Like, even Paul Allen's apartment, when he goes there during the daytime, it's completely white. But he is obsessed with red. He's obsessed with blood. And this then come up. And Jung says, oh yeah, this is like the unconscious forces and energies coming up. Like the blood comes into this lifeless, dead, sterile body to create something. So what he does is completely criminal. And Jung has a very nice quote that is, again, also fitting to the movie. Then Nietzsche asked what the criminal is, after all. He is a mass of diseases, a coil of serpents. For such an individual is a terrible pain and torture, really. And therefore he commits a crime. Nobody causes pain to another person unless he himself suffers pain. As a rule, only such people torture or hurt who are hurt or tortured themselves. They want to relieve themselves from their own suffering by hurting somebody else in order to feel that the pain is not inside themselves alone. And this connects completely to the last monologue he has, where he says he wants to share his pain. He wants nobody to escape. This is because he is hurt. He is in pain. And we see the pain in the movie, but he cannot deal with it. It is his task. He should integrate those things. He should follow through with his things. But because he did not have any connection to humanity, he just drifts away. And this is then his fate, sharing his pain. And he's criminal on all levels, like identity theft, stealing stuff, killing people, murdering people, raping people, everything, like lying all the time. He's lying. The whole movie, he's just lying. It's only in the end, when consciousness caught up, and there's something deeper in his psyche calling him out. This is when he is acting more humanly. And this brings us to modernity and what it says about like the modern world, because this movie has a lot of cultural impact. It's used a lot of in memes, and it comes up again and again. Like people are quoting him constantly. If you pay attention, it happened to me for some time that people started to mention just quotes from the movie. And I have 2 quotes for that. Modern art certainly cares nothing for prettiness. In fact, it would rather have the ugly than the pretty, and sometimes I think it seeks a new realization of beauty beyond the pale of what formerly was considered possible, in ugliness even. And the second, in the case of a highly civilized man in particular, it is possible that he goes on leading an absolute abstract, unreal existence, and that the whole development takes place in the unconscious. This nevertheless makes itself felt in consciousness, for example, in the form of a nervous breakdown or of a depressive phases. So this fits Patrick Bateman, and I don't think I have to explain why, but I want to explain why it's fitting to the modern human condition. Because Jung says, this is us. We are very much in our consciousness, and we're very far removed from our unconscious because we lost a lot of access to symbols and traditions and mythology, religion, all these things. Like, people are alone with their psyche now, and people believe that they can shape and form everything around them to achieve certain things that are not so important, material things, but are not so interested in spiritual, psychological development. And he said this is reflected in art, that we have today. And when Jung talks about the art today and modern art, this is the art 100 years ago. So now it's very different, even more extreme. But he says, like, yeah, he does not like modern music. He does not like modern art. It seems all neurotic to him and macabre and even ugly. And I have to say, when I first watched the movie, this was also my impression. I said, like, oh, this movie made me feel bad. Like, I watched the movie and I felt bad in the end because there's no catharsis, there is no release, there's no transformation, there's not even hope for humanity. And I have the exact same feeling when I go to a modern art museum. It does not build one up. One is not in contact with beauty. So I stopped going to modern art museums because it's all abstract. It is all reduced. It's absurd and it's hard to understand. But if you go into see old pictures, you see old statues and all these things of higher beauty that have persevered for hundreds of years, thousands of years sometimes, it really touches the psyche differently. It's building up, it's invigorating. And Jung says this is missing very much, like we lost a lot of contact to our psyche. And this makes then sense why people become interested in Patrick Bateman, because in a sense, Patrick Bateman is reflecting the modern condition. And it's crazy when you look at it. Like, he has a morning routine, and this movie is from 2000. The book is earlier. When you have all these influencers, they all have a morning routine and they talk about it. And a lot of people aspire to be Patrick Bateman in his presentation, to be this cool, alpha, stylish, commanding, attractive status guy, without realizing, like, oh, the movie is all about how this is not feasible and it will bite you in the ass and it will catch up on you. It is a very ridiculous movie. So this is also why it's kind of funny at places. It's a very dark comedy. And a big part of this absurdness has to do with the music, right? A movie is not only pictures, but also music. And very often you have this incredibly dramatic music to mundane things. For example, with the scene where they're comparing the business cards, which is absolutely about nothing. It's business cards and they all look the same. And they even have the company name wrong, incorrectly spelled on all of them. But the music is just like a epic thriller. Like, this is the most important thing that could happen right now. And the killings are happening to pop music. And when you look into the internet and you quickly find pretty disturbing videos, for example, of war where drones are used, they also play a lot of pop music and techno music, upbeat music, while people get blown apart. And this is really strange because, like, the movie preceded that in a sense. So you have certain cultural products that precede what will happen. And what could say, like, oh yeah, the movie influenced that and people are behaving because of that movie. And Jung would say, like, no, There's something in the collective unconscious that searches expression first in the artist. They want to express something in a book, for example, right? Or in a movie. But this means that there's something brewing in everyone's psyche and that's coming up. So we caught now up to this. Like, this is why we see Patrick Bateman everywhere. This is why we have the morning routines. This is why I have all this ridiculousness and this missing catharsis and this neurotic, abstract, depressing art, which offers no relief and no human connection. And this is why I wanted to talk about this movie. Because it's saying something about the human currently state and humanity. And I see this like I got the most reservations for attending this event than any other than I've done before, which is like weird. Like, okay, why does everybody want to know the story or the psychological background of a murderous guy, like who's lost for humanity in this pretty funny, horrific, also depressing movie? And I tried to investigate that with the ideas and concepts of Carl Gustav Jung. And I hope you had fun and got new insights and understood a little bit of new concepts of Jung. And I want to thank you all for your time and attention and for participating. And yeah, that would conclude my presentation part for this event. This was this event's topic. Thanks for tuning in. If you're interested in learning more about Jung, please check out the description.